So, this is Trek to Yomi. This is a indie 2D side-scroller hack and slash game that is developed by two sets of developers. One of Flying Wild Hog Studios, who I literally covered last video with their relatively mediocre and disappointing space punks, and a guy named Leonard Menchiari, I believe. I might probably have butchered that name, and I do apologize, but yeah, so it's developed by these two. From what I gathered when I had a look into this, because I thought this was relatively weird that it was showing a studio and then one person's name, that this guy is a relatively solo developer. The guy has developed an app and a kind of remake of a CD-ROM game, I think it was, or something along those lines. And from what I gathered, it seemed like the guy came up with the idea for Trek to Yomi and had pitched it to the publisher Devolver Digital, who liked the idea, approved it, and had Flying Wild Hog Studios help him out in producing this type of game. So for the most part, this is mainly Leonard Menchiari's vision. This is his idea and premise. Flying Wild Hog Studios, for the most part, seem to be the guys that have really helped him in fleshing it out and getting it out there for the most part. So, you know, pretty cool stuff. I'm currently playing this on the PlayStation 5. Some of the videos that I've got on my channel have been on PC, but it was mainly because the game was quite cheap on PlayStation because of the PS Plus discount. The game goes for round about £15. I got it for about 14 quid. So I save a quid, but as a student, a pound's a pound, And there is kind of a reason why it's so cheap. The main thing is that this game is short. On average, this game is going to take you around about 6 to 7 hours. In total, the game is 6 chapters. Now, I've played this game for my first impressions. I got up and finished to chapter 3. And I decided that for the video, because I don't want to give any spoilers away, I am going to start the video on chapter 2. So I've actually reset the game. Unfortunately, there's no save slots or anything like that. And there are in-game checkpoint systems that once you pass them, you can't go back. So, because there's no manual save, it's all auto-save. So what I've done is I've actually replayed the game, gone to chapter 2. I'm going to start from there to avoid any spoilers or any major story beats, because I feel chapter 2 has not too much story in it, and also I think chapter 2 also displays most of what the game will have to offer anyway, because of the game being so short. I mean, PlayStation has this really neat tracking system. By the time I got to chapter 4, I was already showing at 50% progress through the game, so I thought that was probably a good time to stop. In total, I've played about 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours of this game. So, take that as you will. I know some people can be a little bit thinking about how short games can be, but I think for £15, I think, it's a decent price for such a short game. So, before we get into the game and everything, obviously, we'll have a look at the settings, regardless of the fact it's console, just to show you some things here. If you can see from the background, all black and white, quite grainy, got a very old film style. Now, this is what the game is going to be for the most part. It's all in black and white, and it's trying to recreate a very retro samurai film style. So the old Japanese films are like the 40s and so on, where it has like this really grainy filter, and again, the fact it was black and white because they didn't have the technology back to make it color, so on and so forth. And I think it's very authentic, it's very stylized, and we'll get into that more when we actually get into the game in itself. So I will head over to settings. In terms of the video, you can change the gamma, the bloom filter, grain filter there. So the grain filter is obviously there to mimic that retro style. If it's someone that annoys you, then you can switch that off. I see it kind of equivalent to when developers put in film grain into games, which often is very dirty looking, and I always turn it off. But I feel the grain filter is perfectly fine. It really adds to the game in and of itself. So I've left it on, but again, if you don't like it, you can turn that off. In terms of audio, full audio sliders, really good. Dialogue volume, cinematic volume, and all that stuff, and subtitles off and on. And then you got gameplay, where you can choose the language. Now, bear in mind, the language here, it's only for the text. The game by default is Japanese voice, and you cannot change it. So, yeah. So if you're not somebody who enjoys reading subtitles, well, you're not going to enjoy this. Difficulty, easy, medium, hard. I've currently got it on hard, and I'll explain that in a bit. Vibration off or on. To be perfectly honest with you, I normally take the vibration off, but because I've had really no issues with the vibration, I just thought to leave it on. And there's the controls. Unfortunately, no way to change the controls at all. They are what they are, so there you go. So, before we jump into it, so first of all, just a little explain about the combat. Now, the combat in this game is very weak. Now, I do have a lot of praises for this game in terms of how it's styled and everything, and it's very clear this is where they went for, was in terms of its style, but I think it's very important to preface about the gameplay in of itself and how the gameplay is not amazing. It's not terrible, but it's not great. It definitely lacks a lot of meat. And that also comes down to its difficulty. Now, I originally ran through this game on Bushido, and I found the game way too easy on Bushido difficulty. Basically, this game, kind of like in the sense of Sekiro and Ghost of Tsushima, which are also like quite popular samurai-focused games, or samurai/ninja games, have a very big emphasis on parrying. Now, I love parrying. I love action games. I love parry mechanics. I think they're very rewarding. One of my favorite action games of all time is Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, and that's a very parry-focused game. The thing is, the parrying in this game is really strong, as in, you one-shot almost everything in this game with parrying. On Bushido difficulty, it's ridiculous. So, I decided, for the video, I was going to run through the game on Ronin, because I thought, well, if I'm replaying the game, let's see if I can get a bit more challenge out of it. Now, I feel Ronin, I'm having a little bit better of a time for it. When I'm parrying people, I'm not insta-killing them, and it gives me a chance to, try out a little bit more of the combat. Now, the combat itself is actually not as dynamic as I hoped it was going to be, but I feel that if you're going to play this game, I would really recommend playing on Ronin, because I feel you'll get more out of it than the other two difficulties, where I feel it really shows how bare bones this combat is. Now, that's obviously more down to the fact that I don't think the combat was very well realized. I don't think a lot of time and effort was put into it, because I feel they were more focused on the stylization of the game and more of how it looks, how it was represented and all things like that. So, yeah, that's something to keep in mind going forward with this. So I'm going to press continue now. So I'm right at the beginning of chapter 2. And I'm going to get ambushed immediately. I'm going to display the combat. I'm probably not going to speak for most of it, because it's, I'm going to have to concentrate a bit, because it's very easy for me to get one-shotted and almost immediately killed. And I'm going to try my best to see if I can do this in one go. So, press continue. Okay. And I was distracted. Go. And I messed up. Damn it, I thought I was going to do it. Damn it. I'm trying to like focus with it. I'm just gonna not really think too much. There. So yeah, that's the combat. As I said, it's very parry focus. Was originally what I was gonna say, but as you can see, I probably was pressing square a lot. I'm pretty sure I barely parried in that version actually. This is not an often occurrence, by the way, in terms of this combat. This is like this is the first chapter type of thing. First introduction to the chapter 2 to give you all those enemies, but most part you're not really going to be dealing with that many enemies on the regular. So, as I said, you've got a parry system, you can press L1, you can tap it. The parrying is very easy in this game. There's a lot of times that actually gives you a few chances actually. There's a few times where I'll parry early, but the parry would still, the parry window is still in effect, so I can just press L1 again and end up parrying him. And the idea is you parry and then you press square, and it does a really big counter hit. Now, I said on easy difficulties, it's a 1-shot. On this difficulty, it's 2 shots. So I got to do it twice if I want to just focus on parrying. And as you notice there, so I'm facing this way currently. Now, there's 2 ways to face the other way. On the exploration mode, so when my sword is sheathed, it means I'm exploring. I'm not in combat or anything. But if I was in combat, I got to press X to switch stances. Or alternatively, which I think is a much better method, if you press back and square, you immediately switch and attack. To be honest, there's really no reason to ever use X to switch stances because the back square is so useful in that scenario. The only time you ever want to really press X is if the enemy's quite far away. Because the thing is, the back square, it's really strong. The fact the enemy never suspects it, so you're always guaranteed a hit when you do back and square. They never block it. So it's always useful to do that. You probably saw there, once I got into a rhythm, it was a very easy combat, essentially. You know, again, even though they're able to damn near 2-hit me, I can just keep doing this. And then I'm you know, basically firing away. Now, in terms of... if I press up... in terms of the skills, here's like the move set. So you got your light attack, you got your heavy attack, standard for a slasher. Then you got these moves, the square, square, up, square, square, down, square, square. And as you can see, there are plenty of moves that you can potentially unlock as you progress through the game. Now, the one thing about this, now I thought this was a quite neat idea. I thought, so you got square, square, up square, square, down square, square. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. So maybe it's the case that if an enemy's blocking high like this, I press down square, square, and that can go underneath them. Or if they're blocking low, I can press up square, square, and that goes on top of them. I thought, oh, that's a really unique way of like dealing with the combat. No, it's not that at all. It doesn't matter what you do. If you do down square, square, up square, square, you're going to get the same result regardless of what you do. I have found, though, that I feel down square, square is very fast compared to up square, square. Like this. That's down square, square. So what I tend to do is, basically what I did for that entire combat was I press back square and just down square, square. And that's just basically it. And then if I'm parrying, it's L1 square and I'm just pressing down square, square. And that's literally the combat. Now, I have unlocked more moves in my other playthrough, not so much this because I'm basically at the beginning of the game, because I've just skipped chapter 1, which is more of just an introduction to the character and the setting and all things like that. You know, for the most part, I'm just using that, and I'm using that despite, like, look how many moves this game is going to give me, you know? Was it 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 19 moves this game is going to provide to me? And for the most part, I'm going to be parrying and pressing down square, square. The parrying's a little bit too effective in this game. And it does reward you. So, like, for example, if you can see in the bottom left when I'm in combat, you've got those squares, which is your health. And, you know, depending on the attack, it depends on how much health you actually end up losing. Now, by parrying successfully, you're actually going to get health back from it. So that's quite neat. And then you've got the stamina bar underneath. Now, for the most part, the stamina bar is pretty worthless. I actually ran out of stamina at the end of that combat, which is the first time I've ran out of stamina during combat so far in this game, which is actually quite weird. The only really other time you'll end up losing stamina is if you hold block and the enemy keeps hitting you, and then eventually it will stagger you, which allows the enemy to give you a free hit. It's kind of, again, like in the vein of Sekiro, where if your posture just gets broken, the enemy is going to get a free hit on you. Now, again, the parrying is so strong and so effective, you're almost never using deflect. There's, like, no reason to. But, outside of the combat, as you can see here, the game looks fucking lovely. Like, you got these really, really nice camera angles. As I said, it's 2D side-scrolling. Oh, actually, press start 2. It's 2D side-scrolling, except for when... Oh, there we go. I've increased my stamina. Unless you're exploring, as you can see here, it's fixed camera here. But in combat, it's always 2D. So as you can see here, now even though this game is relatively linear, if I wanted to, you can go different areas, you can explore, and the game does reward you fairly well for exploring. There are either upgrades you'll get, so for your health and for your stamina, you'll get more ammo for, as you saw when I threw at my kunai. Jump over that tree. You also will get new moves, new combat moves, which you can actually miss. If you actually avoid the area, you'll actually not get certain moves, which is a bit weird. So the game does itself in helping you explore and encouraging you to explore. It doesn't want you to just run through the game, just run through the levels and just go through them quite quick. But as I said, like most part, it's a linear path. It's nothing too major. And as I said, it's all in black and white, very reminiscent of old Japanese samurai films and all things like that. And this is just a little checkpoint system, so I hit that. It refreshes your health and stamina, and that's my checkpoint for if I die. So I go down here now. Come towards me, so for the most part I'm just going to be waiting. So this is what happens when I don't let the enemies go behind me. As you can see, I'm just mainly waiting, ready for a parry. Like that, and then press down square, and then it is. And that's it. That's basically most of the combat. Like that. And then this stunning combination square triangle now introduced. This is a bit weird. It sometimes works, but I had some inconsistencies with it, so I'm gonna see if I can get it more consistent this time around. And it is the case as well that you will get moves as you progress through the game naturally. So I like here the finisher, so R1, which gives you a little nice bit of animation. They can be quite brutal, these finishers as well, by the way. I'm just going to skip this cutscene for now. Nope, that didn't come out. That came out, and press R1. There we go. Very nice. Like, look how nice this looks as well. This looks really interesting. Like, this could basically be a wallpaper type of thing. Really nice. But I said, it comes down to what do you value more. Do you value more gameplay or do you more value stylistic? As I said, the developers have definitely gone more style over substance here. The combat is very lacking. And I think it's a little bit disappointing. I do like the game in terms of the fact, again, I think it's very neat. I think it's a unique experience. I really like what they were going for in the direction they were going for. And there's some collectibles you can get. But as I said, it would have been really nice if the combat was more intuitive, more fleshed out, and all that stuff. I'm just going to climb up here now. As I said, it does look really nice. And as you could probably notice as well, the camera angles do change during the 2D. It's never like one standard 2D form. And they can vary in terms of how they look. You know, that camera angle wasn't too bad. A little bit further away like this, and the combat can be a little bit hard to see. It really depends on which side. There have been a few occasions that I've been fighting in one of these cameras, and it was quite difficult to see. As you can probably notice with parrying, the sword kind of like reflects light, which is a good way to indicate when it's time to parry. Oh. I can dodge out of that. There we go. And in terms of enemy variety as well, for the most part, you've got that one grunt there. The guy behind him had like a bandana. Those guys go for like the stab move, which can be quite difficult to parry because they're so fast. And then you got some like armored enemies. At one point, you encounter a spear enemy as well, who's quite annoying. But yeah, for the most part, the enemy variety is just kind of it's all right. So you can get armor enemies that can be a little bit more tough to kill, but you know, at the end of the day, they do also die from double parries. So this is a really neat thing though that I really like, is the fact that the game does give you a little bit of freedom. So if I walk through this tunnel now, I'm gonna have to fight about 4 or 5 enemies. However, if I go this way, I head over here, and I do this. That was 4 enemies. There. I've just killed all 4 enemies in one go. Because the game gives you that option and that freedom to be like, instead of like going down a linear path, why don't you try and go a different route? That way then, we reward you by the fact you can actually take on all those enemies in one go. But it's still an option. So if I wanted to just go in and fight those guys, I could just walk through that door and just fight them. really nice bit of freedom and choice there.
もう案ずることはない。
I'm just gonna skip these. So yeah, all dialogue and all cutscenes can be skipped by holding triangle. Unfortunately, the cutscenes cannot be paused, which I think is a negative. It is always nice to be able to just pause cutscenes when you need to, but, you know, if you are planning on replaying the game, then obviously it's really nice you can skip them. In terms of replayability, it's a very linear story-based game, which is why I'm doing an early chapter here, so again, not to spoil anything. In terms of replay value, I believe there are multiple endings. I haven't finished the game yet, so I don't know. But I have here there are multiple endings of the game, which I assume will help with the replay value. Also, as well with the collectibles, like as you can see here, if you're somebody that likes to go for 100%, then you can do so. So we're just going to head over here now. Like I said, there's some really nice camera angles that they go for here. With the fixed camera angles, really nice. Save you. And as I said, like, one other thing I really do like about this game, what I like about like these indie games and all things like that, is it does make me reminisce on old Xbox arcade titles, like Limbo, for example, like how interesting that game was when that came out. And because I purposely went into this game know as little as possible of this game, and I think I really benefited from doing so. See, that camera angle wasn't too shabby either. I said, like, the backgrounds are really nice. The characters are very well animated. You know, when you're hitting people, you do feel it. It does feel like there's a good bit of weight towards it. Despite how lacking the combat can be, it does look great. Because it does come down to, you know, the whole cinematic thing, right? Like, if you look back at a game like The Order 1886, where it's just so hard focused on trying to be a film that it lost all its credence of being a game. Well, this game, it's still focusing on trying to be like a film. But the combat isn't, you know, isn't too weak that I feel like, oh, well, now I feel my experience is completely ruined because they're definitely going for a more film style. It still feels like a game. It's just that the game element is just obviously, or very noticeably weaker. Go. Finisher. Basic, heavy, triangle. Oh, wow. I never used triangle, actually. That insta-kills them. Oh my god. So there's even easier ways of killing them. I'm going to skip this cutscene because I don't want to give any spoilers away. I hit that. Nice little rain effects. Good bird foliage. As I said, the parry window is quite generous. I did mess up there, but I was able to recover in time. Oop. That one I messed up. Here we go. Because the enemies are relatively aggressive as well. The enemies do approach you as fast as possible, and they almost always get the first hit in, so it's always best to kind of wait. So it is basically kind of like a waiting game. I guess in a way you can kind of say that it's very samurai-esque, to be patient and wait for the right time to strike type of deal. Like here, I'm going to wait for the parry. There we go. There we go. You're dead. As I said, like, the stamina meter is almost never used because I'm never deflecting because parrying is just so strong, and again the parrying is so generous at times as well. It's the parry fails more so on me. I'm just gonna use a kunai there just to show that. As I said, like, the enemies do, like, they're not stupid. The enemies do step back if attack is approaching, and if I'll actually demonstrate it since I'm low health. If I hold block, they will start there. So he starts doing a heavy attack, which actually stuns me. So the enemies do react to what you're doing. So they're not exactly stupid. There's no way of saving that guy. I have tried. I said the camera angle here is a little bit off. It is a bit tricky to see some of those. Fish you. Dead. I said, like, the combat, in terms of how easy it is, again, bear in mind, I've only played 2 hours of this game, and I think I'm fairly confident on this combat, especially considering I'm playing on, like, the hard difficulty type of thing, and there is, like, that other hard mode, but naturally it's locked, so that, you know, they want you to run through on hard and then go back and play on an even harder difficulty, so it'll be curious to see how hard this game can actually get. So as I said, with the whole exploration thing, so I could just go all the way over here. However, if I run over into here and go into this house, I have now increased my stamina. Which again, is, oh, there was something else shining over there. Maximum ammunition shit. So yeah, so that's just like regarding the kunai. I haven't really found much use for the kunai, to be honest. Like, it's meant to disrupt attacks and like disrupt enemies, but for the most part, because it feels so efficient to just parry them, the kunai also just feels pretty worthless, to be honest. Dead. And yeah, there's the other thing as well. So you unlock moves which you can miss. So if I was to miss this area, I wouldn't have actually unlocked this move, the sprint attack. Sprint attack's not too useful, because again, the problem is the enemies attack like immediately. So most of the time when you're trying to do the sprint attack, you're going to get hit regardless. There's just a little interactive here. So yeah. So for the most part, it is again more like what are you seeing here? Like, do you like the stylized, how it is, how it looks? Or is the look of the combat and how easy the combat can be, it could be something that will put you off? Which I think is a perfectly valid reason. Because at the end of the day, when it comes down to games, gameplay is the most important aspect. But I do feel like some of the other features are quite strong enough that I feel they can hold up on their own. I feel that if the game wasn't as... Oh, I completely messed it up. I feel that if the game wasn't as stylized as it was, I feel the combat would have been a lot more of an issue. And also the fact as well, knowing that this game is a lot smaller budget, the game is a lot cheaper than an average AAA title, you know, I can be a lot more forgiving with it being an indie title. Try this again. I messed up, I didn't press the square. There we go, and then... Oops. Yeah, pretty bloody finishes. I do like the finishes. There you go. And you know what I was saying as well about... What's that? It's Kuna. With the stance system as well. Like, almost all the time you're going to have enemies in front of you. It's very rare I'll ever use the stance system or the back square. The only time that will ever happen is if you literally run into combat and enemies ambush you. But for the most part, if you just stay at the screen and just wait, the enemies are never going to ambush you, so you're always going to have them in front of you. As I said, the stance is relatively lacking. It's a cool little feature for like when you're doing 2D, but again, like the combat, I don't think it's fully fleshed out or utilized. So go here. I won't use the checkpoint because I know there are enemies in here. Use kunai. Go. Oh, brutal. As I said, I really do like the executions. They're so nicely well done. I'll use the checkpoint there. Yeah. Because the thing is like, I feel this is definitely a game that you could also just watch online. You can probably watch a playthrough of it, because again, the person will be done in about 6 hours or so, and you'll probably get a good experience from it. I do feel it does benefit from being interactive, that you do feel you are part of it with the interactivity, but... You know, again, it really is what you value. If the combat is very lacking, then I don't blame you for actually going and watching a playthrough. But I do feel this could be worth your time if you are into these type of games. You know, if you are a fan of things like Sekiro or Ghost of Tsushima, this is probably going to be a type of game you're going to quite like. And I do feel these type of games should be supported. You know, they're doing something new, doing something different, and it's something unique and something new and interesting to play. But yeah. I think for the most part, that's mainly everything to cover. I don't think there's really much more that I can really cover here. There's a little bit more fighting that goes on ahead, and eventually you'll go to a boss fight. As far as I'm concerned, every chapter ends with a boss fight, and they're just okay. You know, it's kind of the same old with it. They're not, like, amazing boss fights. There's not too much mechanically different towards everything else. So yeah, so this has been Trek to Yomi. This is available on all platforms and is available for £15 or your regional equivalent. And yeah, personally I enjoy it. I think it's a nice little indie title. I wish the combat was a little bit more fleshed out, but that's mainly it. And yeah, if you would like to get this title, obviously pick it up, check it out. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.